once in a while. That's the key thing here. But over the last decades, we have seen a trend toward the more, what we would term extreme weather, because we're used to more moderate climate. And specifically in Australia, but California and Europe are no stranger. In fact, look, the entire world is no stranger to it. For us, though, the really critical or crucial turning point was this year's fire season, which started a month earlier and is still not over. But we're lucky, at least on the eastern seaboard, because the torrential rains that hit us and did cause flooding and potentially dam breaking did extinguish virtually all of the fires, which was really lucky in a way. But the point here is, overall, things are getting hotter. And that can lead, as illogical as this may sound, to a cooling as well during the winter months. It might get colder. We're also seeing large melting events. Nothing too extraordinary, but it is increasing.
Yeah.
Right. And more so than that's right. More so than we had initially thought. And we're running models, and scientists are running models, and they're loath to say anything unless they've run a model. But we have to bear in mind here that our modeling is limited by the processing power that we can actually use for it. So our models are inherently flawed, and things are happening a lot faster than our models ever predicted. We are actually now experiencing the worst case scenario of models that were run 10 or 15 years ago. That's what we experienced, the worst case scenario. Okay, that's where we're at. And people say, but the ice, when the ice melts, that doesn't matter. Well, it does matter if it's land ice. It doesn't matter if it's sea ice, because if you put an ice cube into your glass, right, an ice cube, when it melts, you will find that the level in your water is actually lower than when you put the ice cube in. That's because ice, or water, as it freezes, it expands. In fact, water is the only substance that we know of that expands both when it freezes and when you heat it up, right? The only substance there is known to us that will do that. And so water ice will actually, if it melts, will actually lower, okay?
However,
the water level.
I just want to clarify something here. So if you draw a line on the glass before you put the ice cube in, then you put the ice cube in, you'll notice it rises first, and then you draw a line, and when it melts, it will, in physics we did this, and it melted to around about that line, the second line.
Correct.
So the
volume of frozen water is more than liquid water.
Because it displaces water, and it's larger. That's why you always have a part of the ice cube sticking out of the water.
Yeah, but also in areas of the North Polar region, right, where you have large parts of Alaska and Siberia and so forth near the Arctic Circle, because there's land there. There's not a continent, but there are islands and so forth. Especially Greenland. So Greenland is really the greatest worry for Antarctica, somewhat second.
Yes.
And because Greenland is seeing the strongest melt of any area in the world, and that's because they forgot, in their models, that is, to account for the water channels that are running under the ice, or more precisely between the ice and the rocks. So everybody in their model really accounted for surface melting. So the sun hits the ice, and then it melts on the top, right? That's we can model that, okay, because you can figure out the physics. What they didn't take into account is that the ice will crack, and there will be fissures and channels, which are like sort of for the water, under the ice between the rock and the ice body itself. And what that does, it actually increases, and we don't know by how much, it increases the melt rate, because the ice is no longer just melting from the top, it is melting from underneath as well. What it also does, it sort of greases, and if you allow me this analogy, it greases the rock and allows the glaciers, as it were, to slide more easily off the rock and into the water.
Yeah, it reduces the coefficient of friction.
Correctly. That's exactly right. So it actually, so we now have ice that was, landlocked, and that is now sliding into the ocean. So now we are now experiencing a net increase of water volume.
Yeah.
Right? Because that ice previously was not in the water.
And now,
this is where people understand.
Yeah. If you think the amount of ice on Greenland isn't anything to worry about, it's basically a 2-mile high ice cube.
Yes,
it
is. So 2 miles. That's
now you get the sort of the quantity of it. It is rather a lot of fresh water, and it will have a significant impact. If it were all to melt, say between now, Meki, and tomorrow morning, if it all melted in that period, I'm not saying it is, but if it all did, just for an example, we're looking at 3 to 7 meter, sea level.
Mm-hmm.
It would take a little while to adjust it and balance itself out across the planet, but that's sort of the kind of levels we're talking. And those models are as accurate as we can possibly get.
Look, and that's right? And the thing is this: you need to go back to your globe or atlas or whatever map you use for your own amusement, and just look at the size. Look at the size. Look at the size of Greenland. Greenland is not an insignificant landmass. In fact, Greenland is probably the largest island, and it only misses out, misses out on being a continent by just midges. Australia is considered a continent, right? Because it's a very large island. But Greenland is a very large island. Make no mistake. You need to understand that. Otherwise, Greenland, who cares? It's a little tiny little, ice fjord. Nothing will change. No. It's a very large island.
So, just letting everyone know. Look, we have this perspective because people who were convinced that Australia was the size of, I don't know, Tasmania.
It's not estimate. It's got 2.166 million square kilometers. 2.166. So that's about 1 million square miles, roughly. Just under 1 million square miles, right? So, but having said that, the United States is about 5 times bigger than Greenland. So Greenland has got the land mass of about 20% of the United States, which is pretty darn big, right?
Well, on the map, Mackie, the continental United States, or the United States as it is with the 49 states in it, well, 48 states, not including Alaska and not including Hawaii, Greenland's bigger.
Correct. And again, it's Mercator projection. So again, it is very big. Okay, to make no mistake about it. And then if you could argue that if you wanted to, it could be classified as its own continent. It never was, but it is a very, very large island. Okay, so the water coming off is significant. In fact, it is the largest island. I just looked it up again, guys. The largest island is Greenland. So after Australia, it is the largest, non-continental mass. Right? So we got Greenland, New Guinea, Borneo, Madagascar, Baffin, Sumatra, Honshu, and then Great Britain. Great Britain. Okay, I need to explain.
Great Britain's
is
tiny.
10%. Great Britain is 10% of the land mass of Greenland. 10%.
Yeah, that it's crazy.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
10%. Great Britain. So you think Great Britain is big? Yes, it is, but Greenland is 10 times bigger. Okay. So again, very significant. I don't want to harp on it, but I hate it when people don't have the facts, right?
Yeah, completely.
I'll talk about that in a second as well in a different context. But keep on going, my friend. You're going nicely.
Well, yeah, so that's a really big worry, and one of those conversations to be had with people. I just wanted to highlight the coronavirus, if I may. No objections. So, I didn't realise until I did the research that, and this is past our last show, that yes, they renamed on the 12th of February, they renamed the coronavirus from being 2019 NCOV to COVID-19. Now, that doesn't sound like much.
COVID.
That's right, COVID. However, that's the name of the disease that you get, like HIV and AIDS. So I researched and found the actual name of the virus. The virus isn't COVID-19. That's your symptoms collection. But the actual virus is called SARS-CoV-2. This is
that makes sense.
SARS version 2. What it is. And COVID-19,
of course,
that's what it's named, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they've discovered now. And so the deaths compared to SARS is more than twice the amount of deaths.
See, this is, and I agree with you. Now, this is something I need to say, and just in case the people I had the discussion with are listening. Mm-hmm. So I argued. This was just yesterday, in fact. Yep. This was with an immunologist and a oncologist. We had dinner. I think it was yesterday. Today's Sunday, right? It had to be yesterday, or maybe Friday. I can't. No, sorry, it was Friday. I lied to you.
I hope it's still Sunday. Yep.
I hope it's still Sunday. But anyway, the point is, we just said, we just chatted, and I said, the death rate is quite high. You look at the outpatient data, because right now that's the only thing you look at. So what do you mean by that? I said, well, but they said, no, it's 2%. I said, well, yeah, it's 2% compared to the total infections. I completely agree, right? It's probably less than 2%. Now that they're almost 70,000 infected. Yeah. It's probably less than 2%, but you can't really look at those numbers. And please, anybody listening to this or in the chat, please pull me up on my
argument, logic. Right? That's right.
Yeah, pull me up on my logic if I'm wrong. But if you look at the outpatient data, because right now the disease is running its course, we have close to 70,000 infected globally, most of them in Hubei province. In fact, most of those in Wuhan, the city. And we have the death total about, I don't know, it's 15 or 1,700, something like that.
It's at 1,600, 69. Okay. So 1,669. And the total outpatients is 11,310.
Okay.
I've got my graphs on the screen, so it'll help.
Perfect. So it's about 15% in my quick math in my head.
Yeah.
Right? If you look at the outpatient data. So sorry, 11,000 people got better. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
No.
Okay. And out of the, no. That's the 11,000 outpatients.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with you. So 11,000
who's recovered is 9,641 to date.
Okay, gotcha. So about 10-15% then. About 15%. That's the mortality rate that we have right now. So people will argue, no, that's right. That's not right. Like you got 60 or 70,000 infected, and so it's less than 2%. Well, no, you have to look at the outpatients, because so the disease goes one of two ways: either you get better, right, or you do not get better and you die, right? Those are the two outcomes that you can have, especially with something like this. So if you get that's good. So 15% is where we're at right now. No, it's 2%. No, and I keep having the same argument, because you have, at this point in time, you have to look at the outpatient data, because we are not at the end of the outbreak
yet,
right? So once everybody has gone through the stages of, getting sick and then getting better or not, then we will know the true number. I hope the number is low. I really do. Right now, though, it looks like it's sitting at about 15%, which is significant if you have high numbers of infections, which we do. So 60,000. so 60,000 is where we're sitting. Or
69,000. We're almost at 70, which I predicted last week.
Yeah. So
my graphs are accurate.
Yeah, but chances are that we will probably, well, I hope not. But China is where it all started, and we are where China was a month ago. That's where we are in the rest of the world, right? So the next 10 to 14 days will
absolutely agree with you
where this disease is going to go. If in the next 2 weeks the number of cases outside of China remains on a plateau, so there's no increase, I think we're going to be okay. I got no guarantees, but I think we're going to be okay. If, however, we are going to see a similar exponential rise, and don't forget, only a couple of weeks ago, we had only a few cases, a couple hundred cases in Wuhan. A couple hundred cases.
Yeah.
That's what we had. I remember this very clearly.
Say 1 month ago, there was less than 100 cases.
Yeah. Right? And now we're almost at 70,000. So, again, if it plateaus, it is massive. It's exponential, right? So and this is if the numbers are accurate, because there's some studies that we shared with you last time that say that the actual number back then, 2 weeks ago, of cases was a lot higher than would tell us.
Well, I'll tell you that people have been quarantined into their homes, and we don't have official data on those people. So during this week, on the 11th to 12th, we saw the WHO move in and start to take this on and start to record real numbers. And we saw a 14,000 infection increase come from the WHO. 14,000 cases where that was being kept quiet.
Yep.
So that was a huge jump. And that was, 11th to the 12th, it went 45,000 to 60,000. Right? That's bad in itself. However, just supporting Mackie in the outpatient discussion, back on the 31st of January, that's 17 days ago, the amount of total infected people were 11,353. Right now, we have outpatients of 11,310. That's 2 weeks, right? 17 days. 17 days it's been, and there's about a 4 to 5 week period where if you're in intensive care, that your treatment will last that long.
Yep.
And so the figures coming out of this 11,000 people having, been released is relative to, say, about the 31st of January, the last day of January, because that was the total amount of infected at the time. But since then, we've got another 50,000 people with it since then. So this is the hard part, where people are talking about it. And I saw, Mackie, you mentioned this last week, and I've confirmed the detail with you with further research, and that the German case where the person had come, she was taking medication to suppress her symptoms. So when she arrived, this was P0 in Germany, and infected 2 others, and then went home and then said she was suffering from symptoms, that wasn't quite the case, because no one had talked to that patient directly until that information came out. However, those 2 infected people went on to infect people before they showed symptoms. And this is still open case about how urgent this is, and can you transmit it before you present. And have you seen the extent to which China is attempting to put this at bay?
Oh, it's
with their
severe.
Trucks,
I mean,
the trucks with their aerosoling,
they're spraying everything.
My goodness,
they're spraying everything.
Everything.
I mean, there's people out there with backpack canisters spraying virtually anything they can get their hands on, right? And they're also having house-to-house searches. Do you see the house-to-house searches where people have to come out? And
you see the lady jump from the building because she didn't want to be contained?
Yeah, I know.
So someone suicided rather than being taken away by the government.
which is pretty telling in many ways. It's not a good situation to be in.
No, it isn't.
Right,
but
so
they're also burning cash. They've said
Yeah.
no recycling of cash, says the government. So if you receive cash as a shopkeeper, you're to put it away, and we'll renew you with new cash to replace that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment they're scrambling. So all I'm seeing is information here. So yes, it can live on a surface. It can be passed fecally, sputum, or atomized through sneeze, or it can live on a surface. So they're talking about someone might have sneezed on the table, and it can live there for days. Now there's the poor cruise ship. Oh my goodness. Right, so
218 cases now, I think.
Yeah, I think it had gone up to 284. So that's, those people are just, it's not a death sentence, I suppose, right? But it's they're keeping them on board to stem the flow, because there were, 10 staff who were visiting more people on board while the passengers themselves were isolated. The staff weren't isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It's something. This is something. And I'm with you, Meki, and I hope that we see the end of the transmissions. I hope that that not only China, but the rest of the world is putting things in place. China has just announced that everyone's going to go back to work tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they've said.
Except Hubei province.
Right.
Except Hubei. So that's not happening there, no.
There've also been cries for free speech now for the people, which I doubt that's ever going to get legs, because the doctor who died was really telling us all the truth. And if the government is withholding it, how bad does that look now in the world's eyes from the government's perspective? We control the message. Well, you did a really bad job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, the policing of that now is also being called. They're calling, the people are calling for this. They're saying, we want social media. We want, we don't want all this in the dark. And we don't want, and this list is growing. Now, will we see change? I don't know. Maggie?
Yeah. Look, it's very difficult to make any predictions in this particular case. It's hard to, because these are real people that are affected. There's 1,700 people that were alive 2 weeks ago that are dead now because of this disease. That's just the long and short of it. In though, and this is the shiny side out, and we do. We're not journalists, but we do bring information. So I guess we are sort of in a way. But essentially, we need to look at this in perspective. So each year, thousands of people die from the flu. Thousands and thousands. They die from the flu. And in fact, every year more people are hit by lightning that have died of the COVID-19 virus here. Now, having said all of that, yes, let's keep it in perspective. The problem here are the infection. Yeah, I saw that. 355 confirmed on the ship Diamond Princess. There are many infected people, and if let's say it levels out at between 5 and 10% fatality rate, and then that's significant. If you got millions of people infected, you got tens of thousands of people that will die. If the infection spreads like the Spanish flu, right, then you get many more deaths as well. And it is really that short time frame spike in deaths that is tragic here.
What does it mean? What does it mean if there was 10% death rate? And let's just say everyone in your country caught the virus. Well, that's a lot of people. Like, we're talking 2.3 million here.
Yeah, global, we're talking 750 million people. If everybody got infected, and Africa just had its first
case,
confirmed infection.
Yep.
So globally, we're talking about roughly 750 million people that could perish if everybody were infected. And we're not saying that's going to happen. We're not saying everybody's going to get infected. Right? We're not saying that at all. But it raises the specter of other diseases and how our world has become so prone to, well, get sick. So, remember this old saying, when China sneezes, the world catches a cold? Now, this is literally true now. It is no longer just an analogy. It's actually literally true. And it's true because we are all globes. We're globe trotters. We're jet setters. We're going around the world very quickly from conference to conference. In fact, a lot of the conferences I was booked in to go in the last couple of weeks and, next couple of months have been canceled because they are a hotbed of spreading disease. We've got conferences. So I was meant to go to Spain for a conference, right? And everybody from the world, all around in our industry, would have gone there for a week or so, and then rubbed shoulders with 30,000 people, whatever it might be. And then after the conference is over, after a week or so, everybody goes back home, which is all over the world. So if you bring something to that place, right? Chances are pretty good that you could catch it, like someone else could catch it, right? That's where we're living. So these things are being cancelled. But the true impact of this, is going to be the economic and cultural impact. So China is, that's exactly right, Dave. That was cancelled because of it, and we don't even know what that would be quite yet. So each week that the Chinese factories are closed, several million iPhones are not manufactured. Not just iPhones. Australia has effectively shut its borders to mainland China. Effectively shut. There are thousands, and I want to give you the Australian case study. Please feel free to put it into your relative countries' terms, America, Europe, wherever you are, Germany, right? Just to think of it, but I'll give you the Australian case study. So, day dot, Chinese New Year, worst time when this could have happened from an economic point of view. This is the time when the Chinese spend money. Worst case. So our industry, seafood industry, especially abalone, rock lobster, and all that wonderful stuff that is really prized at Chinese banquets. Thousands of orders were cancelled to the point where the industry will now struggle to survive, and a lot of people will simply exit that industry. That's just one small industry in Australia. The impact on tourism in Australia is a couple of $billion as well, because a lot of Chinese are coming here as tourists, because it's relatively close. It's quite nice, and it's got natural beauty and all that wonderful stuff. So that's the students. We've got thousands and thousands of Chinese students. In fact, they're the single biggest foreign student contingent we have in Australia. Now, why is that important? Because they're paying a lot of money to study here. Not only are they paying a lot of money to study here, usually what happens is their parents or families or whatever it might be, they buy them houses or apartments to stay while they study. Because relatively speaking, it's not a bad investment. It's relatively cheap to buy a house or a flat in Australia, if you are a well-off Chinese family. So that's a lot of them have done it, thousands yet again. Now they're standing empty, those flats, or even students that might be renting. So people that rent to Chinese students, they don't get any income. But the Chinese students themselves, they're not back yet because they're not allowed to come into the country, and we don't know how long. We don't know how long that quarantine is going to last. We just don't know. So the longer it lasts, the less likely it is that they're going to come back to Australia because, they have to get on with their lives and their studies. So they might change, to other universities, other education institutions, etc., which is another several tens of millions of dollars worth of impact on our economy, plus the knock-on effects and other things as well. Then you've got the effect on the manufacturing sector, because for better or for worse, virtually everything is made in China these days, right? Not everything, but a lot of things are made in China. And because the factories were closed for the last 4 weeks, roughly, right? Not a lot of stuff was made.
Big
so
delays.
The companies, massive delays in the supply chains, not just the finished product, but also in the supply chain.
Yeah.
So the component parts that are required to make things in the final factory that then ships a product have also been shut and delayed. So right now, we will see a massive impact, short-term and potentially medium-term impact, depending on how long this thing lasts, maybe even long-term impact, because these goods have not been made and therefore cannot be shipped and therefore cannot be sold. So what you will see a stock market impact, because earnings predictions or earning forecasts will have to be downgraded by companies all over the world, especially American companies. Where do you think they make all their stuff? So as the earnings forecasts are being downgraded, share prices will take a hit. So I strongly believe that there will be an impact on the overall stock markets in the world. They take a bit of a dive. There'll be an impact on the real estate market, wherever the Chinese would have gone to either live or buy or study, right? It will impact, and again, case study Australia, here, the impact is going to be massive. It was the Chinese influx, or not singularly, but in the late 90s, prior to the Hong Kong handover back to China, there was a massive tide of Chinese investment in Australia, which really, especially in Sydney and Melbourne, artificially, well, not really artificially, can't say it's artificially, but it inflated the real estate market massively, right? I mean, we had 2, 3, 4, 500% rises in property values. Now we're seeing a correction, potentially, of that. So if you own a house that you bought for, I don't know, $400,000-$500,000, right, 10 years ago or whenever, and that's now worth $1 million or $1.5 million or even $2 million, that there might be a correction to maybe even the original price. Don't think it's going to be the original price, but I think we can see a correction here. And a lot of people in Australia have borrowed money against the increased equity in their home. So let me explain this. So you buy a house for $500,000 10 years ago, argument's sake, right? And then over the course of 10 years, that house increases in value by $500,000. So you're now holding $500,000 of equity that you didn't have before. A lot of people now treat that money as their own little piggy bank, right? Rather than thinking, oh, sweet, maybe I can use that money to invest in some more, make myself financially stable. No, I want to have a big car and a big screen TV, and I want to go to holiday in five-star resorts every year. So a lot of people use that equity to borrow more from the bank and spend it. Of course, now they owe that money, right? Now that's okay as long as the property value stays the same. Because if push comes to shove and you have to sell your property, at least you get something back and you can walk away free and clear from the bank. But if you've borrowed against almost maybe your entire equity, let's say you borrowed up to $1 million, on top of what your initial, like another $500,000, so you're $1 million in the hole, and your property value drops by $400,000. All of a sudden, you don't have enough equity, you don't have enough wealth to cover your debt, even if you sold everything you have. So the economic impact of what we're seeing right now cannot be underestimated, right? What does it mean for industries? Well, education is going to be impacted, tourism is going to be impacted, real estate is going to be impacted. Any import-export businesses will be impacted because nothing is shipping. Right? These ships, they're sitting there. I imagine they're like right now hundreds and hundreds of ships sitting in Singapore, not going anywhere, right? Because they got nothing to pick up and out of China and ship it anywhere. So that's happening, right? We're also seeing a massive impact on things that are being manufactured, expensive things, especially in the United States, because the biggest market for American luxury goods is China. The biggest market for American luxury goods is China. The biggest market for the Australian wine industry is China. Okay, so China, because of its size and wealth and unprecedented growth over the last 20 years, has become an integral part of the world economy. And we used to go there because it's cheap to manufacture. It's still cheap to manufacture, right? And the Chinese currency is fairly low in value compared to other global currencies. So it's still a good idea to manufacture stuff there. But something like this happens, the economic impacts are massively misunderstood, in my opinion. I believe, right, that we are facing an economic downturn of proportions we haven't seen in a long time, simply because China sneezed, right?
Yeah, that's
right.
And
forget even if the virus runs its course, Dave, and other countries don't experience the exponential into rate that China has experienced. The economic impact is being manufactured right now over the last month and into the foreseeable future. We will feel it. That's where we're sitting.
As far out as June. If it stopped today.
Yep.
If it stopped today with this, 6 weeks of manufacturing, closure, we're going to see this ongoing for another couple of months. Just because it takes months to get kit. It takes months, and you're absolutely right. Your part to product your manufacturing, your assembly processes will have to wait. And that's going to be a global economic, even worse turn down than we've currently, never really quite out of the GFC.
Yeah.
I struggle to see how this is going to benefit us, but hopefully a wait and see. I can't imagine living in an environment where you're locked in your house, just under quarantine, and you're restricted and you can only go out once every couple of days, and only one member of your family can do that.
Think about this scenario, Dave, for a second, right? And I know we only got a few minutes.
Yeah.
What if we experienced a firestorm like we had over the last month, and the virus hit us at the same time? So let's say we had tens of thousands of people infected, and we had to deal with the firestorm
and
as we
couldn't let them move around.
No, can't do it. Right?
Yeah.
Scary shit. Scary shit.
Sure.
Hey.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I know. So yeah.
But that's where we are.
Yeah, that is pretty tough. So look, this is the world we live in. Stay safe and stay clean and wash your hands and do all those things you need to do. Pretend it is where you are, and who's had contact with others who at some point through that chain has had the virus. You can at least say to yourself before you go to bed, I know I've done the things to protect myself and my family. I think it's really important. Stay clean. Don't touch your face. Wash your hands regularly. And
don't touch anything. In fact, cut off your hands. No, don't cut off your hands.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. That's don't touch anything. Don't. Yeah, and be courteous. Sneeze into the crook of your arm. Sneeze into the crook of your arm.
Absolutely.
Please do that.
Okay? Yes. Okay. So just checking to make sure. Oh, I would imagine the music should be starting any tick of the clock. But anyway, in the meantime, before it starts, you need to ensure that you have subscribed, maybe buy something from the station, and do what you can, and we'll honestly see you. There's the music after the short break.
Hello and welcome back to Dave and Mackie's Shiny Set Out. That's right. On listener supported radio, freedomslips.com, which means please donate if you can. The station lives on your donations. The station lives on your donations. That's almost a rhyme. It's a quasi-rhyme, as I like to call it. It's actually the proper term. It's a quasi-rhyme. Anyway, if you can donate, please do go to the website and click through to some of the sponsors as well, because that helps the station as well, right? There's a click count, and there might be products and services that you like. If you're listening to this station, I'm pretty sure that you would. So, again, Listener Funded Radio, help us stay on the air if you can. And if you want to, join the archives for a measly $5 a month. Come on, seriously, you can't even get a pizza for $5 anymore. What are you going to get for $5? All right, come on, nothing. Coffee, if you're lucky, maybe a biscuit with it. But essentially, you will then have access to all of the show, all the back shows, all the archives, and not just ours, but every other host. And I think that's pretty cheap, actually, considering, right? And it's all about content these days. Think about all the content that will be available to you for $5 a month. Now, I know, right, Dave? So, look, we were talking about, a whole bunch of stuff, in fact, in line with the show notes as well. We're talking about the coronavirus, COVID-19, what could happen. And we also talked to you guys about the economic impact this is going to have. What we are telling you is not a speculation. These things are going to come to pass. We have Paul Hovey listening to the show today. Thank you, buddy. Good to have you on board. Just messaged us, and he suggested maybe we should move our wealth to gold. Not a bad idea. Gold is one of those crises, I guess, investment options. So gold seems to be stable. So when the chips are down, when there's a war, gold seems to be a good thing to go. And I don't disagree. Not a bad idea at all. Not a bad idea. Now, I don't think it'll crash, the stock market that is. I think it'll take a massive hit, right? But bear in mind that any loss you suffer in your stock portfolio is not a real loss. It's a paper loss until you sell. Once you sell your shares, that loss becomes real. Okay, just be very clear on that. if you're holding stock papers, right, for whatever, in whichever company and whatever, unless you sell it, it's not a real loss. And make no mistake, this money doesn't just disappear. Whatever you lose, should you lose something, somebody else will gain. And that's really how the stock market is designed. It's a huge casino, massive, right? You can't even see the roulette table. That's how big it is. It appears flat. That's how big it is.
Oh, here flat. We
go. Do you know? Sorry, but it just came to mind here. If you look at the roulette table, right, and then you look at some of the flat Earth theories, it looks exactly like a roulette table.
Ooh, I like that.
Because it's like a bowl, which is sort of going out to the sides where the South Pole is. It's not the South Pole in their theory. It's the South Pole wall of ice. But the roulette table, or the wheel of it, the roulette wheel, is in fact a very good analogy for the flat Earth model in some theories, at least. But yeah, look, Paul, thank you for your advice. I think it's not a bad idea. If you have gold, that's good. If you want to get more gold, that's probably better. Can you convert all your wealth to gold easily? I don't know if you can. And if you're in Australia, if you hold a super portfolio, I don't know how easy it is for you, unless you're self-managed. I don't know how easy it is for you to convert what you're holding in your super into gold or something similar. Now, again, though, bear in mind, it isn't a loss until you sell it.
That's right.
If you buy a stock at $10, right, and then it goes up to 100, you haven't made any money, right? Unless you sell it, in which case you make $90 on every $10 you spend, which is awesome, good for you. Similarly, if you buy a stock for $10 and it goes to $1, you haven't lost the $9. You're still holding the paper. And stock prices will fluctuate. That's the name of the game, right? If you have sufficient confidence in the company that you invested in, that you want to stick with it, so be it. Because recovery is a thing. No matter how bad the crisis, unless it's total, at which case nothing matters. Even your gold investment is not going to help you, right? But if the crisis is total, not quite extinction level event, but bad enough, nothing is going to help you, right? So you have to also ask yourself, how much do you think the market can recover if it is hit? But what normally happens is panic selling. People see things dropping, they panic sell, right? And that's everybody's own prerogative. Just want to make sure that everybody's aware of the mechanics of it. Not a real loss until you sell it. Not a real loss. Similarly, if you don't buy a lottery ticket, you will not win. I guarantee it. I guarantee you, if you don't buy a ticket, you will not win. If you buy a ticket, there's a chance of you winning. You understand the analogy here? You understand the comparison? Unless you do something with something, it will not affect anything in reality. Now, Dave, is there anything else we wanted to add to our bleak outlook?
Sure, the bleak outlook. Look, not really. You really do need to understand it. Don't take our advice. We're not financial advisors.
Not by any stretch. No.
Not at all. We're probably worse than you. So don't take our word as the end word. Find your own advice through your own advisors. So not really, Mackie. Without all the weather going on. Because the weather. All the weather. I know there's always weather
that's happening lately.
So there's always weather, yes. But with all the extreme weather that we're experiencing globally, look, it's just one of those things, I suppose. It's the new normal, and it's just what we have to deal with. If the rainfall totals are anything to go by what we've currently experienced, this should be a bumper crop year. Except for tomatoes, for instance, Mickey. But tomatoes like to be underwatered to get a lot of really good flavour in there. But if you water a tomato plant too much, you water down the flavour of the tomato. Does that make sense? It just adds more water to it, and then it has got less taste. So, and that's the same. It's also the same for grapes. So only a certain amount of water is good. Too much is bad.
Correct. Now, also bear in mind that if you water something too much, you will cause something that is called root rot, right? Root rot, which means you're actually killing the plant.
That's right.
Too much water.
Unless it's mint, because it likes wet feet.
Yes. Well, all bamboo for that matter, right?
That's
but root rot is is a real thing, and if you overwater something, you will kill it just as much or just as quickly as if you don't water it at all. So moderation in all things, I think, is important. Okay, look, like I said, we spent a lot of time on the COVID virus just now, coronavirus. Yeah. There are some interesting things that we wanted to share with you, just as a look back, and I think we are talking about. Yeah, we're talking about 2012 now, the Ebola crisis. I don't know if you remember that. Back then, it was quite a massive outbreak on the west coast of Africa, and let's just get into this. It is timely because it is similar in kind, not the same, but we're dealing, of course, yet again with biological agents here, biological entities. If we have any illusion that we are the top of the food chain, just look at the big epidemics that have hit us in the past.
Oh, Mr. Cutter, the same places. I don't know where. My memory is very vast.
Welcome.
The TV shows. I was going to say, the 2012 Ebola outbreak and where it spread to about mid-Africa from the coast, is exactly where the current locust plague, or crickets, depending on where you live, is happening. And they're saying by August, by the end of the season, it will grow 500 times worse.
Can I just throw a little bit of information in here? These insects, which are several billion strong, the swarm is several billion strong, right? They're eating each day, they're eating as much as 50 million people. Let me say this again. Each day, the swarm of locusts is eating as much food as 50 million people would. You think there's a problem there? Yes, you're correct.
They're saying that it's going to be 500 times bigger because at the moment there's no way of stopping it, and they're consuming everything in their path.
Yep.
Just like the virus does, to be honest. But it's a macro scale. And if Ebola wasn't bad enough, and if the COVID-19 isn't bad enough, or SARS-2, wow! I was talking with my friends, Mackie, and I just before we read the show notes, I was talking with my friends, and we all had a little joke about the four, the trumpets and the four, horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yes, and the seven seals.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
He poured
each one of the seals. That's right.
Yeah,
each one of them, and if you start to look, fire, flooding, pestilence, and now we have insect plagues. So I've got 4. We only need 3 more, and then we've got trumpets going on, and then, wow, it's going to be Ned Flanders will be extremely happy.
Ned Flanders, indeed. Look,
I'm sorry.
But if you have religious leanings, this is the time where you start praying. Yeah. And I wouldn't blame you at all for it, because we are seeing things in terms of catastrophe, which are biblical in size and proportion, right? So these things we're seeing are global catastrophes, and if you think that billions of locusts eating all the food in Africa are not going to have a global impact, then you should go back under your rock. Because there will be, famine refugees. I mean, if all this food, what are these people going to eat? I mean, unless the global community comes together and helps these people, we're going to see massive famines hitting the African continent. Massive. Yeah. Forget disease for a second, right? And there will be, as a consequence, in my opinion, again, because of the sheer size of this thing, again, unprecedented, really, in modern history that we know of, the size of the swarm I'm talking about.
There's no predation either that can cope with it.
No, you can't eat those suckers quick enough. It's not possible.
There's a bunch of rodents at the perimeter just, holding their tummies, lying on their back, going, please don't mention food.
Not anymore.
More.
Right? And the thing is, there will be famine refugees, is my prediction, right? Because of the food destruction. They will have nowhere to go, have nothing to eat. What do? I predict they're going to go up north, as far as the Sahara will let them. They'll go east, potentially as well, right? And they will go south, because South Africa, maybe south more than anything, because
farming lands.
Well, it is in good shape, and at least from that perspective. So if I were if I were there and I had to go somewhere, I would probably go south first because, like I said, the Sahara is not going to do much for you, right? So it's bad, man.
Well, yeah, but look, you can eat crickets.
Well, that's a good thing.
As a food source, they're a protein.
100% correct. So, in fact, you dry them up, you fry them up. What are you going to do? You can eat them. So, I suspect that people will eat some of those billions of crickets. But it's just. But all the other food staples, they're gone, right? It's just. It's going because crickets will only last so long. And food staples, the thing is, these are subsistence farmers mostly. What does that mean, Mackie? What it means is they make enough mostly to feed themselves and have enough left over to save seed saving, right?
Heirloom.
Which means they can then plant in the future. That's the idea.
That's right.
Correct. Now, if everything is eaten, though, that means all of it is eaten. The things that you would eat yourself, as well as the seeds that you would have saved to plant in the future.
They'd never mature enough to make the seeds. Yeah.
No. So the problem here is that maybe look, you could eat the crickets and you survive another year and it's all good. But what are you going to plant in year 1, 2, and 3? Because the locusts have eaten all of your seeds and all of your fruits and everything. So there's nothing left for you to plant. So this is a crisis. I didn't want to say catastrophe again, but this is a crisis that will go well into the future, right? And what I predict here, this is my prediction, Dave. Monsanto is going to stop in and just give them GMO seeds. Okay, that's what I think they will do. Genetically modified seeds is what they're going to get. Free of charge, I think, first year, and then of course because you can't save those seeds.
Heirloom seeds, you'll have to buy them again next year. Maybe just with my this is a tinfoil hat zone, so forgive me in saying this, but if that was the case, then I would have to question the origin of the cricket plague, the locust plague, and say that could have been genetically engineered itself. Because how best to solve a problem unless you create one.
Yes, sir.
Very, very quiet on that one, Mickey.
Yeah. but you can see the game plan here, right?
Yeah.
And it's all a game, everybody. It's all a game.
Well, now, what wasn't a game? Ebola.
Ebola was not a game, no. But again, it was probably part of the larger game. Ebola, microbiologists and the US connection. This is an article from 2012, September. Interesting, was taken from PackAlertPress.com, www.packalertpress.com. Overseen by the US Department of Defense, which is the DoD, under the Transformational Medical Technologies Program, short TMT, so many acronyms, of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency and the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, have spent millions of dollars conducting scientific research into the Ebola virus, its potential for being turned into a bioweapon, and certain vaccine efforts through 2 drug corporations, Massachusetts-based Sarepta Therapeutics and Tecmira Pharmaceuticals of Canada. Then the funding was abruptly cut. The TMT, the Transformation Medical Technologies Program, as we said earlier, creates relationships with private sector biotech firms, pharmaceutical corporations, and academic institutions, as well as other government agencies, to advance biological warfare. Hooray! Not enough of that. Research viral and biological weapons and estimate threat levels of all biological agents based on ability to infect and effectiveness of devastation. I like that term. We have to assess the effectiveness of devastation. You can just sit them around. You can see them, right? Sitting around the table, and they're all scratching, and then pushing back their glasses and, shuffling their papers. Yes, the effectiveness coefficient of devastation is 312. I'm sorry, I shouldn't make fun.
Is there any way to increase it?
I think we can, sir. I've just the thing. Oh, good, Watson. Show everybody.
All ears.
Yes, that's all you will be. The DoD suddenly stopped funding Ebola vaccine research through these 2 corporations due to financial constraints, they say. With the sporadic nature of Ebola outbreaks combined with the absolute deadly nature of the virus makes it hard to sell to large pharmaceutical corporations, because it isn't a huge customer base, and big pharma is obviously interested in big profits. And it's true, right? The poorer populations anyway. So these niche products, which are important for biodefense, are really driven by small companies, according to Larry Zetlin, president of MAP Biopharmaceuticals, who is developing therapies to combat Ebola, Dave.
Yeah, that's right. So mysteriously, question mark, because I wasn't looking at the show notes, microbiologists and virologists who were involved with research into immunology and bioweapons have either gone missing or found dead over 2 decades. Some of these scientists had ties to Howard Hughes Medical Institute, the NIH, the DoD, just to name a few, while the number of experts involved in infectious disease research, having died under questionable circumstances, has risen exponentially. The US government has remained nonchalant. In November of 2002, which is actually the year my car was made, DynCorp was given a $322 million contract to produce and store vaccines for the Department of Defense. DynCorp has been connected with Promis, Promis, a software program designed to identify and target specific individuals for operations known only to the US government.
Ominous organ music plays in background.
Right, so one of the most shocking calls for depopulation came from Dr. Eric R. Pianka, scientist at the University of Texas back in 2006. Bianca was speaking to an audience of fellow scientists, students and professors when he proclaimed that 90% of the world's population needed to be killed using weaponized form of the Ebola virus. He stated that an airborne version of Ebola would be more effective than the HIV AIDS virus has been since its release in 1979 because of the speed in which the victim dies. So
there you go.
See, this is the thing. That's the thing right there. And doesn't that sound like the smoking gun? Remember they talked about the HIV virus, possibly coming from monkeys or from deepest, darkest Africa.
Damn monkeys, I tell you. Yes. Damn monkeys. What are we doing with the monkeys? That's my question. Who's controlling the monkeys?
And so, there was plenty of, conjecture over the virus from HIV. But this is something else. When he says 90% of the population needs to be killed and, using a weaponized version of Ebola virus. Wow. And look, and it's more effective than HIV. Yeah, it's pretty gruesome, though, I'll tell you. Right?
It's not a good thing.
No. So, Mackie, comparing it to the coronavirus, with its estimated, currently estimated 2.4%, mortality rate, versus the 10% estimate based on the numbers at the time and the length of time that you have to go through it. They've not currently determined what happens after you successfully recovered from the virus itself. We haven't got enough data on what it means. Can you become reinfected with the virus? Does it cause any long-term tissue damage in your lungs, for instance, because of the ACE2 receptor, for instance? What does it do? We don't know. So we have no long-term view on this. We know what SARS did.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to share. I want to share with our audience an excerpt of the speech of Dr. Pianka's. And there was broadcast on an NBC affiliate, KXAN in Austin, and on 2 cable talk shows, and was posted in a statement at the University of Texas as well. Okay, so this is I want to share this 2 paragraphs, and it's not part of the show notes.
I can tell.
So this Pianka guy, right? This Dr. Pianka that said, we need to kill. So this is the speech that he gave, and I want to read it in full, not in full, but just these paragraphs that I have here. I have 2, and I'm reading a speech now. I have 2 grandchildren, and I want them to inherit a stable Earth, but I fear for them. Humans have overpopulated the Earth, and in the process have created an ideal nutritional substrate on which bacteria and viruses, in brackets microbes, will grow and prosper. We are behaving like bacteria growing on an agar plate. It's like a little petri dish. Flourishing until natural limits are reached, or until other microbe colonizes. Until another microbe colonizes and takes over, using them as their resource. In addition to our extremely high population density, we are social and mobile, exactly the conditions that favor growth and spread of pathogenic, which are disease-causing, microbes. I believe it is only a matter of time until microbes once again assert control of our population, since we are unwilling to control it ourselves. This idea has been espoused by ecologists for at least 4 decades and is nothing new. People just don't want to hear it. Okay, the next bit is where it gets a bit chilly. I do not bear any ill will toward people, as though he were not people. Right? So you have to understand that these people don't really see themselves as people. So let me read this again. I do not bear any ill will toward people. However, I am convinced that the world, including all humanity, would clearly be much better off without so many of us. Simply stopping the destruction of rainforests would help mediate some current planetary ills, including the release of previously unknown pathogens. The ancient Chinese curse, "May you live in interesting times," comes to mind. We are living in one of the most interesting times humans have ever experienced. For example, consider the manifold effects of global warming. We need to make a transition to a sustainable world. We need to make a transition to a sustainable world. If we don't, nature is going to do it for us in ways of her own choosing. By definition, these ways will not be ours, and then they won't be much fun. Think about that. So 2 problems I have here. One, like many scientists, and in fact, people that are don't believe in anything but evolution, make nature a person. Nature is not a person. Nature doesn't do anything deliberately. Okay, if you believe in evolution, which is fine, by the way, and again, I believe in punctuated equilibrium, but that's a different story for another day. That's all goodness, but there is no agency or prime mover or hidden actor that makes nature do anything.
No agenda.
I get really upset. I get really upset when people say, "Oh, nature is going to do this, and nature decided to do that." And the one time I got the most upset was in the movie Jurassic Park, when Jeff Goldblum's character says, "Well, nature selected dinosaurs for extinction 65 million years ago." No. As far as we know, a meteorite, comet, whatever, hit the Earth and killed dinosaurs. There was no agency. Nobody sat back and said, "Oh, we gotta extinct those dinosaurs to make space for those mammals." That's what we need to do. If you believe in evolution and all its trappings, from a purely scientific point of view, everything we experience is completely random. There is no agency. Stuff just happens.
There's no meetings, there's no agenda, there's no minutes taken, there's no direction, there's no steering committee.
We have this innate need to personify the things we do not understand and give them a human-like agency over our lives. That's in my opinion, the genesis of the gods, but that's a whole different story for another time yet again. We cannot make the mistake of thinking there is something out there, if we want to be purely scientific here, right, for a second, that is guiding anything at all. Nature is going to do it for us. No. What's going to happen is, if we overpopulate the planet, we destroy it to a point where it can't come. Well, we can't live on it anymore. Then we will die because of our actions. It isn't something that nature decided to do. We did a whole bunch of stuff, right? And maybe in the long term, a comet is going to hit us or whatever, and then we die, and then there'll be something else. But there's no agent out there, if you believe in evolution and pure scientific paradigms, that is doing that. So if either you believe in that, and then you've got to be very careful in your language and the way you think, or you don't, which is okay too. I mean, you can believe in a God. I got no issue with that. Whatever, it's fine, but be clear. Sorry, that's my pet peeve. But I found this speech
spaghetti
telling.
Monsters aside, Mackie, it doesn't matter, right?
Well,
that's right.
And the second thing is that this person, Dr. Pianka, is not wrong. I'm not saying he's wrong. What he fails to appreciate, in my opinion, and a lot of them fail to appreciate, is the distribution of resources that we currently have on this planet, which is completely unequal. and completely unfair to the vast majority of the people on the planet. Now, can we all live like wealthy Americans and still have a planet? The answer is no, we cannot.
Mm-hmm.
Can we all live a much reduced lifestyle, still be comfortable, like well-fed, healthy, productive lives? The answer is yes, we can. But it is no longer possible to make a morally or ethically sound argument for billionaires. We cannot afford as a society to have billionaires. We cannot as a society afford to have the wealth of the world concentrated in the top 1% of its population. That time is done. I know this sounds like extreme communism, but no, it's not. What it is, it's survivalism. Do we want to survive into the next century? We have to do away with our economic system and the way resources are distributed. If we do not do that, then this doctor here, Dr. Pianka, might well be right, and we will experience a massive population reduction. But we don't have to. We only have to if we keep going the way we do and the way we are. The problem, of course, is that anybody who can make any meaningful contribution to solving this issue has got no interest in it.
That's right.
Bill Gates bought himself like a 300-foot yacht or some crazy thing. I'm going to be okay. Dave, I've been saying this from the start. The people in power, the elite, the true elite, they're going to be okay.
They're always going to be okay.
They're going to be fine. Oh yeah, the useless eaters, they will die. We're going to inherit a park. We're going to turn the earth into parkland. Thank you very much. Okay. Because they would, even if the planet was destroyed, there would be enough resources at their disposal to leave the planet, move to the moon, move to Mars, move anywhere really, but not here.
Right. So,
not where the problems are.
Yeah. So, Meki's right. We can't all be billionaires because no one would be left to do the money, so to do anything for us. The billionaire right now hoards money from the rest of us, and if there weren't any, if there was a cap, I'm not saying that we need to install a cap. But if there were a cap of, $4 million or something, right? Then all of that extra, billions of dollars, which would have gone upwards towards a single person or a very small family, dynastically even, it doesn't matter. But that's been vacuumed out of the frontline pockets. That's the way it is, because it doesn't go back into society. But if all of those people, at least in the middle, were to have more, then that does support, because everything in countries in the way that we've currently got them designed runs from, and I detest it, but from the middle class. I detest the phrasing. People in the middle, right? Not the extremely wealthy people or just even the wealthy people. It's the people in the middle who pay the most taxes and do the most work and have all the things they have. All the people at the bottom who don't have any work, they're being supported. All the people at the top really don't spend any money on anything, worthwhile to support the country. So all the governance of the countries that we live in are all done from the middle. But when you core the middle, you end up with no money in the governance, and they're just going to have to print their own money. That's a whole other thing again for fiat currency. Really, I think he was, and don't hate me, I think he was sort of right on the money with his full speech. Being paraphrased a little like this, he sounds like he's the one that's going to open up the jar and release the virus on everybody. He sounds like the evil guy living in a mountain lair who's going to do it to the world. That's really paraphrasing him out. But in front of a group of his peers, I think it made a lot of sense. Why do you? And this obviously lends itself to the next statement, and that is, why do you think all the the super wealthy people are buying their tickets for Mars? Why do you think they're all investing in getting out off this this planet? I wonder. That it keeps being raised in my mind as a question. But Mackie, coming up next in the show notes, because I want to get us back to the show notes, is the MH17 disaster, which we brought up, I think, in the lead in on episode 1 of the biological weapons series. We're on part 3 right now. So in part 1, we spoke about this. Jameki, do you mind if I go on? Not sure where Mickey went.
Please go ahead. Sorry, I was on mute. Please go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going.
All right, awesome. All right, so if we can all cast our minds back to 2014, it's only very, very short. But in July 18th, 2014, about 100 people travelling to a global AIDS conference in Australia, I think it was in Melbourne, were on board Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 that crashed in inverted commas, and killed 298 people. And it crashed in the eastern Ukraine. And there's a report, this comes from the Sydney Morning Herald. The researchers, the health workers and activists were on their way to the International AIDS Conference, I was right, in Melbourne. Among the victims planning to attend was Dutch national Joop Lang, a top AIDS researcher and former International AIDS Society president. There was Britain Glenn Thomas, a spokesperson for the World Health Organization and former BBC journalist, was also on the flight. And there was 100 people going to that conference on that flight.
Yeah.
Very important that we remember, and also the situation around that, and the was it not Buke missile, I think it was, and the 2 trucks, and the controversy and the ownership of who was responsible for that. Wow. And this is what we covered last week. We covered all of the deaths leading up to all of this time, and this is a continuation.
Right. It's frightening, anyway, and not as frightening as the next piece of information, though. But there seems to have been an effort underway over the last 15, 16 years. Mm-hmm. Sorry, let me rephrase this. Starting in 2000 and then going on for the next 15, 16 years, there seems to have been an effort to, kill off, silence, I don't know what you want to call it, certain researchers and scientists and others that could either help prevent something or might have been involved in developing something that we might soon already have seen in action. Okay? I'm not saying, again, COVID-19 is a purpose-made, deliberately released agent. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the timing of the outbreak is extremely suspicious. And I'm going to say it again. If you wanted to hurt China, and by by proxy the rest of the world, because China is not so important, you could not have chosen a better time. Simply not possible. That's the best time. But what happened in 2014, 6 short years ago, a town was sealed off. Nothing to the extent that we've seen here with COVID-19, but a man died of the plague in China. A Chinese town was sealed off, and 151 people were placed in quarantine as after a man died of bubonic plague. The state media said in this report. The 30,000 people living in Yumen, in the northwestern province of Gansu, are not being allowed to leave, and police at roadblocks on its perimeter are telling motorists to find alternative routes. The television arm of the official news agency Xinhua said. Other reports said that earlier this month, the 38-year-old victim had found a dead marmot, which is a small furry animal, which lives on grasslands and is related to the squirrel. Plague is categorized as a Class A infectious disease in China, a text report by Xinhua said. The most serious under China's law on the prevention and treatment of infectious diseases. Bubonic plague is a bacterial infection best known for the Black Death, a virulent epidemic of the disease that killed tens of millions of people in 14th century Europe. In fact, 30%, some estimates, of Europe. A more recent pandemic, the modern plague, began in China in the 1860s and reached Hong Kong by 1894. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control says on its website, and that pandemic caused approximately 10 million deaths. Modern antibiotics are effective in treating the plague, the CDC says, but without prompt treatment, it can cause serious illness or death. Human plague infections continue to occur in the Western United States, but significantly More cases occur in parts of Africa and Asia, it adds. Cases occasionally emerge in China. A villager who found the dead marmot and ate it with other residents of Litang in Sichuan province in the southwest died of the disease in September 2012. The newspaper run by the health ministry reported. So that's the bubonic plague. And the town was sealed off. Not an entire province, mind you, just 30,000 people living in this town. So what we're seeing today, it is quite unprecedented, Dave.
Yeah, completely. So what the talk is today is we're talking about 550 million people in lockdown. That's, that's some serious stuff. Just letting everyone else know that Japan was attempting to utilize the plague right at the cusp of World War II and in a war against China. And that it was foiled by the bombing of Nagasaki, and that was the secondary target on that day. Just letting you know. We've got a friend of the show also that suggested that possibly MH17, that was Chris, friend of the show, who said that in reaction to the... Do you remember MH17 when it came down, there was some talk about the bodies were already dead before they hit the ground? Yeah. And maybe the plane was used like a gas chamber. Don't know, it's only conjecture. But yeah, we question that too. So thanks, Chris, for letting me know. So in 2014, the Ebola outbreak in Guinea was unprecedented, says that. Is that MSF? Was that the organisation? No, BBC.
MSF. Yes, that's correct.
So, Ebola is spread by close contact and kills between 25 to 90% of its victims. The Ebola outbreak that has killed 78 people, this is the story from 2014, in Guinea is unprecedented, a medical charity has said. An official with, MSF, so that is the Doctors Without Borders, which I contribute to, said the spread of the disease across the country made it difficult to control. The West African state is facing a battle to contain the outbreak after cases were reported in areas that are hundreds of kilometers apart. Ebola is spread by close contact and kills between 25, a quarter, to 90% of its victims. The outbreak of Ebola had centered around Guinea's remote southeastern region of Nezerkore, but it took the authorities 6 weeks to identify the disease. What, the eyeballs exploding and it wasn't a thing? They're bleeding out of everywhere is the clue here. The first two Liberians confirmed, not librarians, goodness me, the Liberians confirmed as dying from Ebola were sisters, one of whom had recently returned from Guinea. Sierra Leone has also reported 5 suspected cases, none of which have been confirmed yet, while Senegal, another neighbour of Guinea, has closed its land border. Outbreaks of Ebola occur primarily in remote villages in Central and West Africa. Now, wow, Mackie, so it is another close contact virus.
See, but again, this was in 2014.
Yeah,
the reason we have all of these stories here, and we had them in the first show as well that we shared with you some 5 years ago now, I think, is because these outbreaks were unprecedented. These things hadn't happened, and we're trying to draw a line or a connection as well with between the outbreaks of these plagues or these diseases. And the associated, in my opinion, the associated deaths of the microbiologists, right? So any of these things could have turned a lot worse, in my opinion, but they could have also been dealt with a lot faster. So the death of all these scientists, right, and then the unprecedented outbreaks of these diseases, are they related? I want to say probably, and we certainly have a lot of evidence pointing that way. And again, just going by the speech of Dr. Eric Pianka, the one I just shared with you, if you wanted to reduce the world's population significantly, the best bang for your buck
Yep.
is in biological warfare, by far, especially if you have a vaccine. And I want to quickly remind you how the Dr. Pianka started his speech. He said, I have 2 grandchildren and I want them to inherit a stable earth.
Yeah.
But I fear for them. And this is where it all sort of, comes really down to it. It's the children and your grandchildren that you want to live and have a better life, and he wants them to inherit a stable earth. Maybe with 500 million servants to boot, if that's possible. And look again, he's not wrong. All the things he says are correct. But I will make the point again, because it's an important point. We need to change our economic system. We can no longer afford to have billionaires living on the planet. We simply can't. I'm not a communist. Oh, I'm probably more libertarian than anything. But I can see the writing on the wall. Our economic system is dead. The economic system of never-ending returns and unlimited resources is dead. It died with Alan Greenspan. He's not dead. It died when he admitted that he was wrong. That's my point, right? It died when he admitted, I've been wrong all my life. Whoops. Whoopsie. Whoops. Harvard economics is wrong. Whoops.
Hey, mate, do you remember the story we did on the economic student who came up with a new way of doing it? And said, well, this would work a lot better. And they go, but no, that's not possible. There is only one way, and we're doing it. No. Here's another one.
No, you're wrong.
That's right. You're wrong. Shut up.
Shut up.
Shut up, Claus.
Good old shut up. It's me, and here's my old friend again. Shut up. But the thing is this, right? Because of the way our system is structured, and this is really the crazy thing here. There's no way that these people would give up their power. There's no way they would agree to any of this. And I don't care if somebody is a billionaire and they give a few million here, even a couple 100 million. So what? They're still billionaires, right? The truth is, our economic system has to evolve into something that is a lot more. And I hate to say this because it sounds very nerdy, Star Trek-like, where we have to move beyond a scarcity economy.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to move into a post-scarcity economy in society. What does that mean? Right now, the way our economic model works, it is built on the principle of scarcity, supply and demand. I want something and I'll give you money for it because I don't have it. In fact, the more scarce or rare it is, the more money I will give to have it. And we have to move completely away from that. In fact, Delano Roosevelt, he had hang on, I just saw this. This is just brilliant. I'm going to share this with you. FDR, right? So FDR wanted to have a new Bill of Rights issued to the American people, and it included the right to a decent living, food, a good job, housing, and all these wonderful things. Never happened, but that's what he wanted. And that's what we need. Everybody has the right to a stable income or food, shelter, a good education, good health care, help when they can't help themselves, like good social network. So they all of us, we all have or should have that right, but we don't, not today. In fact, was it who argued this? Nestle, I think, argued this. Was it Nestle? The right to water.
That's
it's
right.
not a right. You don't have a right to water. It's not a human
right. Yeah.
That's insane. Can we just stop for a second and think about this? What? So what happens if I don't have water? I will die. Oh, okay. Right.
I should be able to charge people for that.
Yeah. And in fact, air. All these suckers are getting the air for free. What is that? We can't have that. Right?
Yeah, that's
can't
right.
be done. That's insane. I mean, all this stuff, you can't, you're just breathing it for free? So this is, in fact, in some areas of the world, in fact, in the States, not to double dutch here, it is illegal to collect rainwater. Excuse me, it's falling from the sky. Yeah. It's falling from the sky. I can't collect it? Nope. What? And And this is it's really crazy, and it goes a long way to explaining where we are. Monsanto will win every legal battle with you. If you got a farm near Monsanto farm, and the Monsanto seed blows over, I'm talking about genetically modified stuff. It will, and then it'll spread on your farm, and then you have GMO. You didn't want to have any GMO, but there you have it now. And yeah, actually, you make that point in a second, my friend. It's a good point. And you see that. That you have a whole GMO crop. So you can go now to Monsanto and say, oh, look, I want to sue you because I didn't want this. No. They said, no, you better pay for this. Otherwise we'll sue you. But I didn't want it, but you have it. And it's ours. So, pay. But no, you don't understand. And the thing is this, they will win. And they have won. The courts will rule in their favor. And it's the same with everything else. If there's a buck to be made, and we have now given away our power. We've given away, or we think we've given away, our right to protest and our right to object. We haven't, but we just let it happen. We let it all happen, Dave. Tell us what happened with hemp, Dave.
Yeah, right. So this one was the thing that I was worried most about, was how far back was the ability for big companies to lobby the government in their favor so their product would have no competition. That's really what we're talking about. And so when hemp was being used for everything there was, it was being used for clothing, no cotton. It was being used for, as we all know, if you had in gym, you had to climb the rope, it was always made of hemp and it gave you blisters like the Dickens. Rope production, a lot of stuff in, the early days in navies. It was everywhere. It was prevalent. But nylon was invented by DuPont, and they said, but we've just made this brand new thing, we want to replace hemp with it. And they got it passed. And then hemp suddenly disappeared, it became illegal. How can you make the product we're all using to be illegal? I know we have this new thing, see, this is much better. And it's only now, it's nearly, how many years? 80 years later, right? We're getting on? Because it was around the World War II where hemp was made. So, that's a long time it's taken for us to be able to crawl back out of the hemp hole where we were all buried by a large company. So when we see this, when we see Nestle pushing this, water isn't a human right, that'll happen if we don't protest against it. That'll happen, and it'll happen with this. It's the thin edge of the wedge, and it happens with everything, and suddenly, we're where we are right now. For instance, the fat versus sugar debate, that was won. And what won? The survey or the report that was paid for by the sugar organizations to show that fat was bad. And we've learned since that it's sugar that's bad for you and not the fat. The fat wasn't bad at all.
It's all bad for you. Don't eat anything.
Don't eat anything. Oh yes, master. Right? So that's just really crazy. We've just taken it and shut up. That's really, I think we're so complacent now. And Gen Tech, oh my goodness, they're so paralyzed and hypnotized by their tech that they're incapable of making a decision for themselves. You put them in a room, you turn off the Wi-Fi, they're walking into each other. And I'm really frightened that people, we haven't protested, Mackie, right?
No.
They're like offline robots, right? Who can't make an independent decision for themselves. I know I'm going to get hate mail. I get hate mail all the time, and that's fine. But I'm worried, Mackie. The future, right? The future where there is no intelligent debate anymore. The meme on its own is the debate, and it's believed on the face of the meme without any further investigation into the detail. Because I'm handing it back to you.
No, but Dave, look, you have to, and you know this, but our listenership has to understand this. This has been a concerted effort and undertaking, a project, if you will, a program of work that's been going on for hundreds of years, thousands of years, but it really sped up over the last 100 years. And this is a loss of education, actual education, right? We no longer teach our children to think. We no longer give our children any really usable working knowledge of the world. We don't give them ethical understandings or groundings. We don't. What I mean by that is, you might be born into a faith, and good for you, but for the most part, you don't know what that actually means. And if you don't have a faith, that's worse. In school, you've got something called ethics, at least in Australia, and you watch videos or movies or whatever because the teacher doesn't know what to talk to you about. What they should talk about is the ethical life, the morality of our existence. Read Nietzsche, read Immanuel Kant, read Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre. And in fact, just because God is dead, as Nietzsche famously proclaimed, doesn't mean you don't have any responsibility for your life anymore. You've got more responsibility for your life. You've got more responsibility to live an ethically correct life than if God were alive. Because there's no ultimate authority to judge you. Yeah. So all these foundations, they're gone. Then we've done our children a disservice with the nutrition that we put out there. Sugar, fat, additives, colorings. God, I pray,
600s.
Please. Stay away from anything that's colored. You will see a massive change in your children's behavior.
That's right.
Massive, I guarantee it. I mean, it's not even the sugar. The sugar will make your child hyper, but that'll wear off, right? It's not good, but it's not going to be a long-lasting harming effect. It's the additives, especially the coloring, that will leave a permanent damage for your children. So avoid it like the
preservatives making all the 600s?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, 100%. Any E number, if you can avoid it.
That's right.
And critically, feed your children fresh fruit and vegetables. My kids had a bit of a sniffle. This was probably last year, and the doctor came. He goes, just okay, that's fine, blah blah. So we had this house call service, which is great. At night, you don't want to take them to the emergency room, right? Anyway, the point is, you just give them more fruit and make sure they eat fruit, because I guess that kind of advice is good for most people because their children probably don't get fruit. My children get fruit every day, right? I make sure they got apples and oranges and whatnot, berries if it's in season, whatever the seasonal fruit is. I don't buy fruit that's out of season if I can avoid it, right? I just don't. And in Australia, we're lucky because we got many climates across the continent. But you have to make sure your children eat fresh fruit and vegetables. Make sure when you do give them meat, it's not highly processed. It's not hormone. It's organic. It's grown in a natural environment, right? And same with the water. Make sure they drink clean water. They don't have to drink juice. They don't have to drink soft drinks. Don't give your children soft drinks. It's nuts, right? What we do to our children. I tell you a horror story. How about I've got a couple of minutes? I'll tell you a horror story. Yeah, this actually happened. Child grew up with me, girl. She refused to drink milk, and we grew up like we're tiny in Germany, back in Germany. No milk. And she would eat only what she wanted to, which was sweets. And in my age, she's dead now. She actually passed away, right? But she lost all her teeth. Her spine was so soft, they had to put an iron or steel rod, whatever it is, in there. And she had a horrible life because she wasn't given milk, and she was only ever given lemonade and things like that. And then the music started. Come back next week. We're going to talk more about this stuff, and donate if you can. And Gerber is having a roundtable right now, right?
Yeah, he's got one coming up straight after this show. So enjoy his show. Take care, everyone. See you later.